Many of us are familiar with this term grief brain, right? That gets kind of thrown around. But what does that really mean? And how does learning about grief brain or that experience allow us to better understand each other and ourselves as we go through this process? So we can have a heightened sensitivity to stress, greater difficulty making decisions and communicating, harder, it makes it harder for us to create and recollect memories. We can experience social withdrawal, and interesting, we can experience, because of what the grief is doing to our brains and these regions that are affected, as you see it on your screen, we can experience reduced empathy. So then while experiencing all of this, again, we're asked to make choices with others and be in family systems with others and navigate and be in relationship with others. So you can see how this experience and these changes make it harder for families to work together and more vulnerable. They become more vulnerable for conflict during this time. So again, when families are grieving, they're asked to make these important decisions together, and they're experiencing maybe some common grief responses that can make it difficult for them to do so. And we know grief affects people in very different ways. So while I might be experiencing grief that causes me to, maybe my fear center is activated, and so I'm feeling like I need to be very rigid and I need to control things, and I have a very low tolerance for ambiguity because I want to make choices and feel like things are done. So that might affect my ability to compromise with others. I want firm positions so I can feel emotionally safe, right? Because my fear center is activated, my grief brain is activated, and so I'm coming from that place. Well, I might be coming from that place. My brother or someone else in my life who I'm trying to interact with might be coming from a place of a different experience of grief on their brain and their body and their emotions. And maybe they are having a hard time focusing. They are not able to concentrate. Maybe they're not processing information as quickly, or they're feeling just overwhelmed by all of the choices. So they're stuck in sort of this indecision paralysis, and maybe they're not making choices or frequently changing their minds. And so we're coming together both through our experience of grief in very different ways, being asked to make choices together, and that can be ripe for conflict. Recently, I was giving a presentation to caregivers, and one woman was sharing with me how frustrated she was with her brothers after her father had passed, because her brothers were not making choices about the burial. Simple things like, what tie should dad have on? They were just dragging their feet and didn't want to make choices. And she felt resentment toward them. And this is what she was sharing with us as a group, as a caregiver. I feel so resentful toward my brothers because they are not making these choices. And I feel like I've had to take on the whole burden of making all of these choices, which feels overwhelming because little choices add up and become what seems like everything. And so she was sharing her resentment. And the more we talked about it, we just thought, I wonder why. I wonder why your brothers might be dragging their feet. What could be causing them to drag their feet? And then we talked a little bit more about how grief can affect the brain differently, how it can affect our emotions differently. And maybe your brothers are not making choices, not because they don't want to or they want to put the burden on you, but maybe it's because for them, that choice just feels like too much, or it's just they can't focus on it, or they don't want to. They want to avoid it because that is something they can't handle emotionally right now. So there are many reasons why we struggle during this time to make decisions and why we can struggle working together. And again, understanding that it's not just because we're bad people or we are out to get each other, that really we're all experiencing grief in different ways. Understanding that can help us extend compassion to ourselves and to others, and hopefully through that understanding, we can begin to have an easier time working together and making choices. So as we talked more about it, that woman who shared that, she thought, maybe they are coming from that place, right? Maybe I can just give them a little bit of more space to take this slowly, because my need for rigid, quick decision making maybe isn't working for everyone.